when it comes to social media, it's a great tool. Like everybody says it, right? You have the ability to connect with so many people, but there's nothing like the good old in-person interaction, I'll tell you.
Hi, I'm Zach O'Mara.
And I'm Jared Compton of Rattlesnake Suitcase.
And we're on all over the place where the fun sanity never ends.
Hello and welcome back to All Over the Place. I'm your host, Eric Porvoznik. And as always, I am just beyond thankful for everything that's been happening over the last couple of weeks. I mean, really, since the beginning of the year, we are growing. And specifically the Lamal, the CK Smile from Chaosium, our trip to the Sunset Strip for the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame Awards. Our back catalog still getting lots of views. People are checking it out. That's you. And I can't thank you enough out there in the all over the place land. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for continuing to watch, share, and subscribe. And Jim, I want to bring you back in. How you doing?
I'm awesome. How are you?
Well, you know, we've got an awesome guest, so maybe I'll save part of it. Actually, I will save part of it. But the rock and roll nomination, the regular Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, not the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame, nominations came out today, and two very key bands are on there. One of them is returning, and one of them is a first time, finally, and that would be INXS, and we'll get into the other one later because I don't want to gush too much on INXS because we're bringing to the show someone that we met out at the LA Heavy Metal Hall of Fame Awards, and I got to hang out with them a little bit. We're going to get into all of that stuff from the concert that night at the inductions. And please welcome to the show from the band Wicked, a band that makes your nipples hard and have nothing but a good time. Welcome to the show, Danny Martin.
What's up, guys? Good to be here.
All right, and Danny, I got to get it out of the way because we were talking pre-show about muscle cars and, just wanting to get out there and in them. And if you guys are not driving up to every one of your shows in a bitchin' Camaro and or a Fiero, I got to ask, why not?
What was that music video? Was it a Poison video where they all rolled up in their own muscle cars? I think it was something like that. I can't remember.
That does sound like something that the guy that Brett and CC and then Ricky and Bobby would do, no doubt about that. But you guys are such a great throwback to that, and of course, we're drawing on so many other influences, whether it's the New York Dolls, Kiss, Van Halen, Rat. Just talk to us about a guy from the younger generation understanding and reveling in when rock and roll was kick ass.
Dude, I'll tell you, I think it all started when we were kids, because that's when you have like this propensity to just like, if you're into it, right, or you're getting influenced by somebody. I remember sitting down and had to do like a school project and on music, and I was like, I don't want to do this like Saints Come Marching In and this and that. And I found AC/DC and just seeing Angus, right, like doing his thing on stage and like just that power. That's where it started for me. And then you're a kid and you're with your, for me, fortunate, my brother, Chad Michael, our singer, and we're on the computer and you have all these sites like Glam Nation and Sleaze Rocks and all these webzines that are talking about like the history and the lore of what happened back in the day that we missed. But it's creating this whole image of like this excitement. And for us, that's where we were like, this is what we want, right? Like we love all kinds of different rock and different musical genres, but like when it comes to like that hard rock, from the 70s through the 80s and even into the 90s, it's like you had the look, you had the sound, you had that entertainment, and we were like, we want to do that, man. That's sick. We gotta bring that back. What we're missing, we're gonna create it.
Love it, because that was my heyday. Of course, you've got my generation locked in, Gen X. And what's it been like, though, as you're influencing your generation, and what's the response been like at shows?
It's actually kind of cool. I'm glad you brought that up. A quick little story or a monologue of it is, in our local hometown of Rochester, our influence kind of sprawled, and we started to see like this one or a couple of particular groups that ended up creating their own heavy metal bands. And we remember them just being like young guys, even, before when we were younger, right? Like they were even younger, and they were coming to shows. And then one day they came up and they're like, we're starting our own band. And, now we've done a couple of shows with them, brought them on to open. And I think that's kind of a cool full circle to see like hey, yeah, you get into rock and roll for like whatever the reasons, right? Like glory, the fame, this, that, but to see that influence of other people and bring them along for the ride, that's pretty cool. And it's one of my favorite parts. So
I'm wearing my Mammoth shirt, and Wolfgang, obviously the influence he had from his dad, uncle, and all that stuff, being immersed into Van Halen, and bands like Rattlesnake Suitcase or Alter Bridge. So, what's it been like for you seeing? I think a great resurgence of people, picking up guitars and rocking out.
I think it's great. When we were starting to create our band and like what Wicked was going to become at that time, a lot of, what this style of like very, image heavy hard rock, it really only existed in our minds, at least from what we were finding out in Europe, right? Sweden, bands like Crash Diet, Hardcore Superstar, Helicopters, Backyard Babies. And there wasn't a lot going on in the US. Now, to your point, it is exciting because, there is a resurgence and there's so many cool bands out there. And, if you like new music or even just good rock and roll and you're not looking into these new bands, you're doing yourself a disservice because there's so much exciting stuff. And I'm not talking like, you always have like people who are heavily influenced, right? And it's like, oh, that's a Motley Crue, copycat. I'm not talking about that. We have like killer new bands, to your point, whether it was, relatives of these big artists or even just bands that are influenced and coming up, they could be in Nashville, Atlanta, New York, out in, California. They're everywhere, man, maybe in the Midwest. And you got to get on there and you got to check bands out because that's for us when we write and make our own music, we're all about diversifying our influence. I think that makes a good, core for writing and creativity. And I'm inspired by this resurgence of new rock and roll. It's so exciting.
And once again, you've got Gen X ready just to embrace this. And again, it's new, it's fresh, but it certainly reminds me of back when I was having a good time and just having fun. And that's the thing I really liked about you guys. I was able to when we were at the show after the red carpet and everything at the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame, and saw you guys. I was hanging out with you guys, talking a little bit. But as the night wore on, then Rat comes on, and you guys, or Chad in particular, was not. Look, everybody knows Round and Round, but You're in Love. I'm looking over. He said note for note, word for word. And then later on, when Chris Holmes came on, Animal Fuck Like a Beast. Yeah. You guys knew every word. And so talk to us about the importance of having fun in a rock and roll band.
I mean, for us, that is the core of our branding. It's cool, right? Like there's been so many cool bands through the years, especially like in the 90s and stuff who could help you tap into some different emotions and stuff like that. And there's a time and a place for everything. But, a little background on us is, we consider ourselves pretty hard workers. We work some pretty serious day jobs when we're not doing the band stuff and, close with our families. And, we just like live a kind of a pretty normal life, just dressed like rock stars and then grinding with the band. And with that comes, this perspective of, hey, an appreciation of when you get to go and play rock and roll or experience rock and roll and be a part of that community. It's that moment of escape. And when you escape from something, you want to have a great time, man. You want everybody to be getting along, raising their glasses together, just enjoying those moments that are going to kind of dissipate for, after those couple of hours. And so when we do what we do, we want to bring that joy to people. And it's so fun to see people of all kinds out there in the crowd. You got, punk rockers, heavy metal guys, goth girls, people with suits and ties standing next to each other. And it's like, we did this, man. We brought these people together. This is pretty cool.
Totally. Yeah, you mentioned AC/DC earlier, and that was my gateway drug into hard rock during the grunge era, because it was like, I love that. I love coming up in the grunge era, but man, you listen to AC/DC and I'm like, this is actually fun. You get a kick out of this, and so that's what got me into it. But
And
Yeah,
AC/DC had like killer imagery too. Like I mean, as a
Yep.
kid, it was like, you know, whether it be Ball Breaker album and like all the cool like liner notes. And remember the CDs used to pull out the liners and those and,
Oh, yeah.
and the pictures with the lyrics and stuff. And it's like, man, this is pretty kitschy. Like, or you know, like even like you get a box set and they got the little devil drawings and stuff. I mean, that was the stuff that sucked me in. You know, it was like
Totally.
there's so much more here. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I'm
You got to reach into the
sorry,
albums.
Danny. What's a CD? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Hey, listen, we're huge vinyl heads. I'll tell you, you walk into the house, the first room you see in the Wicked Band House, which is where we all live, like an old school band, is just this room with walls of vinyl, right? And then we have a vinyl player in every room. So like if we're just chilling, you know, there's some wax on there just spinning. So
Well, I saw some CDs in my box sets. They're up in the closet. So yeah, they're around too. But I still have some cassettes. God damn it!
that's cool. We got cassettes for the muscle cars because that's all they that's all they put in.
All they take.
I still have a couple singles, as a matter of fact. That's
cool.
how hardcore I was back in the day. And I mean, you bring up, you know, everyone living together and just harkening back to the crew living in the crew house and all that.
Yeah.
And guys just enjoy. Talk to us about how that influences how you create music.
I mean, it definitely, we're blessed. I'll say that. I always say it's probably lightning in a bottle. I don't know if something happened to the band, if we would ever be able to get that kind of dynamic back together, you know, regardless of Chad and I being brothers, but the other guys too. And when you live together, right, you're experiencing this life together. My biggest thing I always try to tell people is you could get influenced by other bands. You could get influenced by, you know, songs and lyrics and maybe even, you know, words on a page of a book or something, but it's experience for us that is always a cool influence. So we live together. It makes it easy to write and record. We built a studio in our house, all that good stuff. But then we also go and we hang together, right? We go on vacations together. We go places. We see other bands. And whenever we get off of like a tour or just a trip or something, like that's when it's like you feel this like channeled energy of like excitement. And you're like, and then we're like, let's write a song. Let's write 2 songs. You know, it's like it's always such a cool way to spend your time as a group. You know, it's not like those stories you hear of band members that are like, they email like a guitar track over and then the guy puts the drums on. It's like none of that. You know what I mean? We're in the trenches.
An analog mentality in a digital world. I'm loving that. Yeah. You create, you wake up, you roll out of bed, bang, there it is. Hey, wake up. I need you for this part.
It's a thing of beauty.
Yeah. So actually, what is your take on have you read Motley Crue's The Dirt?
I have. I've
Okay,
read
so
it.
then talk to us about, you know, like, because I thought it was a fairly decent adaptation, but talk to us about what they did on the book to screen adaptation.
You know, you always get your variations between the two. I'd highly suggest reading the book. You know, it's that imagination, right, that you get to play out that's undisturbed when you're reading the book. And so I highly enjoyed that. But the you know, the film was great, man. I think it was fun. It always seems so much more condensed. You know what I mean? But I enjoyed both. I think it's a cool story, right? It gets you hyped, like, you know, these bad boy rockers from back in the day and like all the antics and stuff. I'll tell you what, as a kid, it's so easy to get influenced and excited about that. And there's like a double-edged sword of that, right? So like, thank you, Motley Crue. Like, you got us to do a bunch of stupid shit over the years, and we had to learn lessons from that. So it's like a plus. We learned the lessons, and it kind of hurt along the way too, but it was fun. So thanks.
Oh God, I love hearing that. the proper decadence of rock and roll making a comeback. Yes,
Indeed.
And of course, I mentioned Marty unable to join us, but he did have a question. And keeping on the Motley Crue kick, you're the bass player, and here you are out in front, kind of like being Nikki Sixx, more or less the spokesperson for that band. So talk to us about your role as the bass player and getting out there and getting the music to the masses for the people.
You know, they make fun of the bass players, but really my role is band dad, being the oldest. And so I got to keep all the guys together, right? And being the band dad comes the spokesperson stuff and all the good stuff. So it gets interesting in the house. We always say that that there should be a reality show of what we do because, you know, man, I'll tell you, we get along famously, but when there's scrambles or, you know, there's some crazy crap going on, it is hilarious. Like, you know, just keeping these guys from doing nutty stuff. I remember I'm like working out in the basement and the doors cracked open and I just see these guys scrambling with like brooms and stuff like by the door. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And I walk up and it's like they're trying to hide something. And I'm like, what'd you guys make a mess of? Like, what are you trying to hide? And I look up and there's Gunner and his feet are just dangling from the ceiling from the attic. And he's, he thought he heard some kind of raccoon or something. And he fell through the ceiling. You know, like, are you shitting me, guys? Like, yeah. But no, it's cool, man. Everybody plays their part and everybody has, you know, a role or roles rather. And, it's fun. You know, we're running a business at the end of the day, but we're having a blast doing it because it's what we love to do. And it's what, you know, is our passion. So, you know, all the writing of the music and the performing and stuff, that's great. But then, you know, it's cool to see like on a regular weekday, like the business aspect and, you know, I'll come home and I'll have like a whole agenda for us to do. And everybody's like plugging away, you know, whether it's Scotty doing the artwork or Chad's great at, you know, video editing. Gunner, he's like our utility guy, right? Like he's always like fixing the van, like, you know, booking things, calling up people, logistics. So it's pretty cool. It's cool. And I'm proud to have a team that, you know, puts in the work and has the heart to do that. So.
Well, now you bring up the van right now. I want to hear your best/worst van story, whether it's breaking down or just take us to that night where it's your van story. Because every van's got 1 or 5.
Yes. So we call it the orange Tic Tac. It used to be white, and we thought that was a little poor in taste. So we painted it like Harley Davidson, orange and black.
Nice.
Thought that was pretty cool. Maybe in hindsight, it's a little gaudy still.
No, it's not. No.
But that van, I'll tell you, it's the bane of my existence. It's taken us many places. And it's like, to your point, there is just a list of like times that, you know, we've been stranded or broken down. I think my favorite memory of the van is probably it's a constant one. Gunner has this habit because he's a drummer and he's got like ADHD. And he's always got to be tapping and hitting stuff. And I can't even count on both my hands how many times in the last couple of weeks that I see him like hit the van just like he's drumming, and then like the body just starts crumbling and falling apart. It's like, dude, stop hitting the van, man. Like, what are you doing?
So if I'm understanding this correctly, you got the typical van from the 1970s or 1980s, and it's winging a prayer, just hoping it stays in one piece.
Listen, it's got a brand new engine in it. Everything's great about it except for it's disintegrating now.
Yes, good old rust.
Yes,
back in the Great Lakes. Absolutely. Oh boy, not missing it at all. So, just recently, you guys dropped the latest single from the upcoming album, the title track to the upcoming album that's going to be coming out this summer, Go Rebel, which joined Obsession, which, Frank, I have not stopped listening. That is the catchiest damn song.
It's awesome, too.
Since probably Every Day is a Winding Road back, and I couldn't get that out of my head back in the 90s. But talk to us about, you know, just waterfalling singles and then the creation of the album that's going to be coming out later this year.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's like you said, the first single we put out was Obsession. And I think when you talk about this album that's coming out, that is also called Go Rebel, off of the latest single that just dropped a week ago. It's like, you know, we're again walking through this evolution as a group of guys, as a band, what we love about music and where we want to go with it. And, you know, we came from our first release, Last American Rock Band, which is a really good example of like the band over like the first decade as kids, just like learning how to play, you know, early influences like Kiss and, you know, some pretty just straight up rock and roll. And then we went to Sunburn and we threw in this like bit of like this mix of flair of influence. We're 90s kids and we got a little froggy and we were like, how can we mix 70s rock and roll with, some of these bands that we really loved in the 90s and like kind of get this, maybe a little bit of a more youthful flair of our influences in there. But Go Rebel is like bringing it back to this basics of rock and roll, and still keeping this propensity to bring in all these like broad influences. So like when you hear Obsession, the first single, there's so much, it's a very like hard rock, but melodic song. And there's even like a metal breakdown in it and everything, right? Like something different that we wouldn't have done in the past because we felt, oh, we got to stay in our lane. There's no more staying in the lane with Go Rebel album. And then we dropped the title track, right? And Go Rebel is like this, just good old rock and roll, fists in the air, like fun anthem-y song. And I think the album has a lot of diversity. Like I'm excited for, the listeners to see it come out later this summer. That diversity, but it's got cohesion and really for us, it's just that next step of evolution. And we're super excited. We've had a great time making it and it's going to be so much fun to play live, which is the important thing.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to that. Of course, you guys are concentrating on the East Coast right now. Irony of ironies, it's cold back there right now, Danny. Come out here to the desert and escape that snow. Man, you got some hometown Rochester gigs. I get it, but we're waiting for you out here out here in the Phoenix area. And of course, hopefully we can hook you guys up with Rattlesnake Suitcase coming together. I think that'd be a beautiful lineup that night. But I love how the new album flows so nicely. And of course, I kicked earlier in the show, I mentioned, making my nipple hard. But that, of course, Who Do You Love? That's the name of that line comes from that song. And there was no question mark. So I had the feeling I wasn't going to be hearing a Bo Diddley cover. So, talk to us about, lyrics like "Make My Nipple Hard" and "Make My Nipples Hard." Let's go. And then also the next to the last track on the album, "Taking You Back," bringing the fun back. Yes. As an anthem on the next to last track. So talk to us about how you decide to sequence the album and just coming up with lyrics.
I mean, well, I'll take it from the lyrics standpoint. I think, we like to not make it so parody, but like we like to kind of be real with what we're trying to describe. And I like those uncomfortable moments sometimes, like that line you just said, like it just kind of perks up your ear because you're like, I don't hear people like say that like out loud, right? Like it's kind of cool. So it's so much fun like sitting down with the guys and going through the lyrics, but they always say they're like, oh, Danny, he's the one who always kicks the lyrics off, and I'll like pace back and forth while like they're playing a riff. And it's just like some kind of dyslexia or something. And all of a sudden, all these ideas start flooding into my mind. And like, here we go. Here comes the story. Right. So when we're making this album, it's like, it's a bit of storytelling too. We're describing this, not only who we are, and, some stories of what we've done, and what we're doing, but also like we're describing this community that we are imagining or willing into existence, right? Like we talked about the resurgence and stuff like that. We talked about go up at live shows for us. So it's for Go Rebel, it's about more than the band. It's about, we're starting to talk about community, and we're talking about the flavor and the experience of what that community is like and what that energy in that community is like. And it's pretty cool. And we'll have songs that are nostalgic at like Taking You Back and, a little bit of a Thin Lizzy inspiration. And it's talking about like the old days that inspired us. But it's cool. Like it's a canvas that we get to just, we throw our painting on it of what we're trying to create. But the most important thing with Go Rebel is community. And that's kind of like the hotbed key word there, for what the whole album is about, in entirety. So.
What do you think would be the biggest surprise for fans on the album?
Biggest surprise, probably. I think there's I'll tell you what, there's a ballad. We haven't done many ballads, and I think that'll be a big surprise. There's a cool video that goes along with it too, and it's just a departure, right? Like, and I think the fun part of being a creative, and being in an industry like this is, it really is, unless you're on a record label and they're telling you what to do, it really is up to you to kind of decide how you're going to present that and this landscape you're going to create for the fans and your listeners and viewers. And so we're having a blast with it. And I think that one that'll be an exciting one. Some dual guitars, and a ballad will be pretty cool, man.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because our most recent episode, we talked about our favorite dual guitar attacks.
Yeah,
and
I love that.
Rat was one of mine. I love the glory years of Warren DeMartini and Robin King Crosby, and Def Leppard, another favorite of mine. What are some of your favorite dual guitar attacks?
I mean, if you haven't noticed by now, Thin Lizzy is just hands down one of my favorite classic rock bands. And in terms of the guitar work, it's whether it be Robinson era or if you're talking later on Black Rose album and stuff like that, it's just throughout the history of Thin Lizzy, you had all these killer guitar players that would come in, and they all had their kind of own flair. And I love that on each album, how they kind of show that, but they're always sticking to that core model of using those two guitars. And it's big for us, right? I'm big on Phil's, poetic writing influence from Thin Lizzy, but Chad and Scotty with their guitar work, they always try to have a little bit of an influence there that kind of gives them some directionality on how they could create their own version of it. And I just can't say enough about how much I love Thin Lizzy. It's such a cool band. I wish they would have done more,
Yeah, and a band I recently signed, I brought them up on the show, Ogma, a couple of guys from Mark Daly's Ravens band. They also play with Jeff Tate for his latest Queensryche incarnation. But James Brown and Killian Plummer, they play Jailbreak live.
So cool.
Which was so cool. I mean, again, just younger guys presenting it now so that the next generation gets it about Thin Lizzy. So yeah,
I'll tell you what about that. We don't do many covers because this whole thing is about this creation of the brand Wicked. But every now and then it's fun, like you said, to throw something in and harken back to the greats. And I don't know if you remember I think it was a Greatest Hits album. They released all the way at the bottom a bonus track called Dedication.
Yeah. Wow, there we go. There's
we did that, and I'll tell you what, that's a hard hitting song. Like when you got the guys playing Gunner on drums and Chad just wailing away at that. It's pretty cool.
Love it. Brought up at the beginning of the show, of course, I'm very excited that NXS finally has got a nomination for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And look, we all have our opinions about however they want to define rock and roll. But Iron Maiden finally back on the list. And of course, Dave Murray and Adrian Smith, another great dual guitar attack. So talk to us as someone also a veteran of the red carpet out there for the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame Awards. Talk to us about Iron Maiden being on there and hopefully joining a very small list, unfortunately, of heavy metal / hard rock acts in the Hall of Fame, the regular Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, there's always the great controversy of what isn't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the little that get in, and it's for us, it's a dual feeling because you see Iron Maiden and it's finally so you are excited. They got you hooked, right? And those guys deserve it. And then there's just this, immense amount of bands that were incredible that, like you said, don't make the cut. And there's others that maybe don't seem so rock and roll that do. But I think that's fun. There's a thing to what is going on there because it keeps the fans engaged, right? It's sparking their emotions and they give you a little bit and finally a great band like Iron Maiden will get the nod. For sure, many more deserve it. But I always love when it's that time of the year and to see who made it and didn't make it. And I love
Eddie about the snow.
When Eddie gets on and he throws his opinion in, and I'm like, yeah, here we go. People are gonna get riled up. This is what it's all about, baby.
Stir the pot.
Yeah, but they've got a great chance to put a lot of rock and roll in there this year, whether it's Maiden or NXS, a little funk rock. But Black Crowes back on the list again. I think this will be a year for Billy Idol is back up there again, so I think that they'll hopefully right or wrong with that one. But yeah, just again, bands will love to have fun with rock and roll. And I definitely want to steer people towards you guys on social media. You've got Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, and YouTube, and you've got the same ID there, and that would be at Wicked Rock and Roll, and that would be ROCK, just the letter N, ROLL, Rock and Roll. No apostrophe like Guns N' Roses, but still like GNR, because Guns, just the letter N, so Rock and Roll. And it's rolling across. For those of you watching, you'll see that on the ticker. But for those of you listening only on Spotify or Amazon or wherever you're listening on our audio platforms, that'd be WICKED And you brought up earlier, Danny, about doing videos and creating content. We talked about that before the show. So with social media as the platforms that get you out there, what's the response been like with people, making comments, coming to the show and saying that they're there because they saw you on TikTok or Facebook or wherever?
I'll tell you what, here's my hot take on social media. If I could teleport back to the 80s or the 70s when all that wasn't existing and go back to the boots on the ground and flyering things and just being out there, I would take it hands down any day. I love that personal interaction and, everything that you would hear about how things would go down back in the day. And believe me, we still do that. I think the most important thing when you're doing something like we're doing in this business is being present physically. And that's why we'll basically kind of move heaven and hell sometimes, even if it's not us playing a show, to go and support other bands. And it's not out of the question that, hey, we pop into Nashville or some other state and we're supporting new bands and people that are working hard like us. I think it's that networking. You saw us at the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame, same thing, right? We're out there supporting the community. Even though we didn't play this year, the previous year we did. So, that is so important. When it comes to social media, it's a great tool. Like everybody says it, right? You have the ability to connect with so many people. And if you do it right, and, we've learned over the years, there's so many tricks and everything, but it is cool to see like, hey, right now, Wicked, we're planning to go to Japan next year. So, we're really working that community out there, and you could do it over social media, where it would be much more non-efficient for us to go out there and hang out for a couple of days right now. So it has its ups and downs, but there's nothing like the good old in-person interaction, I'll tell you.
Once again, it's analog, folks. Like Dan said, it's the boots on the ground. It's the press and flesh, and just being there in person.
Me, but
yeah, you're such a Western New Yorker. I love it. Real people, Great Lakes. I love it.
Yes.
When we talk to you guys on the red carpet, Chad mentioned, just like what it's like to you guys are. It's like your second home away from New York. I mean, the Sunset Strip is the proper home for you guys. So what was it like that night getting to meet the guys from Poison or just anybody else that night that, just like, hey, I had the chance to, be in that community?
I'll tell you what, it was pretty cool. The way they set up the event, kudos to Pat and the team. But it was cool. Like, being a part of the red carpet and everything and seeing like, Ricky Rocket come in. We were over at the Viper Room right beforehand, and just standing next to each other at the bar and small talk conversation and casual combos, and it just felt so natural. Everybody's so nice, and we're so proud of these great legends that got the accolades that night. And it was cool that they treated us like contemporaries and chatted with us casually about what we're doing and rock and roll and all things great and exciting in that realm. So it's a pretty cool experience. I take my hat off to, the guys that are so nice and the ladies that are so nice to newer artists and fans and stuff. Doesn't always happen that way. But it's pretty cool when it does. And, Chris Holmes, the whole group really that night, great people. So it was a fun hang, if nonetheless.
Yeah, and again, you guys were rocking the fuck out when Animal Fuck Like a Beast was on. That was so cool to just watch.
Dude,
watch the next generation.
Holmes' guitar was like not only turned up to 11. That thing was like ripping
that was crazy,
apart, right? It was crazy.
And it was also nice that night. I don't know if you saw it on the episode, but it was very cool to see Eddie Trunk giving you guys and other younger bands good shout outs and carrying on the legacy that was started back there on the Sunset Strip in the 80s.
Yeah, absolutely appreciate it. I mean, Eddie's a legend, as everybody knows. So, you know, to get some of a nod from him, it's a big accolade. We appreciate it. Know you're going in the right direction, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, folks, don't forget that, you know, Wicked is going to have the new album Go Rebel coming out this summer. Keep watching and listening. Check out the new videos on YouTube and paying attention on your audio platforms. I'm a Spotify guy, so I'm getting my alerts. So whether it's Obsession and now the title track Go Rebel are now out. Listen for those and new stuff coming up. And actually, what's the next single going to be, Dan? Can't we talk about that yet, or that'll be a surprise in the coming weeks?
I don't even know if we know what the next single is.
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you what, though, we do have 2 more singles to go, maybe 3. But the way this is like we're doing shop talk here, right? So like, you know, the fans get to see it, but this is like cool, right? We're doing this cool hang conversation session. So when like we're sitting down doing this, sometimes you have it all planned out, and it's like this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna try to stick to this plan and schedule the best we can, right? And then other times you got to like pivot, man, in this business. And we've been doing a lot of radio through the Go Rebel campaign so far in the 2 singles. And something we've kind of learned is this notion of having to pivot, right? And so like as we're working with all nations all over the US, you know, we're getting feedback after Obsession, and we're kind of taking that feedback, right? Because this is the fans, this is the radio indies, these people who are in the industry kind of telling us what they think. And of course, we're here not only for ourselves, but, you know, like I said, for the community. So we're kind of going with it to a plan, but also adjusting. And but I'll tell you, we have at least 2 more singles before the album drops this summer, and they're pretty cool. They're different. And another good rocker, and then there's one that's a pretty cool power pop rock song. That'll be.
I know what I like on the new one. I've been blessed. You know, Chips or Jen was able to hook us up with getting to hear the whole album. So I know I'm going to be digging a vinyl copy of that one when it comes out. I will definitely be on top of that one.
Wait to see vinyl.
For the community who has not yet discovered you, Danny, give us an EP's worth of songs that you would want them to hear to become a Wicked fan.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
4 or 5 tracks.
If you start with it, everybody, you know, who's already a Wicked fan, some of the top ones that you got to listen to from first album to now, Hot Stage Lights. That's just like, it's kind of got like this almost Def Leppard vibe. So you got to check that one out. You've got Sunburn and Gorgeous, which were 2 singles off of the Sunburn album. And they both have a completely separate vibe. One, a little bit more of that punk and pop, hard rock vibe, and Sunburn. Gorgeous having this cool, like, I'll tell you, that one was very David Bowie, but like, if you think of the 90s, because we kind of grew up at the end of the 90s, right? Third Eye Blind, not a pop punk band, but a rock band with guitars, in my opinion, that is very similar to what maybe Bowie would have been if he started in that era. So we kind of put that in Gorgeous, and it's got this cool swing and vibe to it, with all these changes as it goes into the breakdown and solo. And then, of course, you know, Obsession right now and Go Rebel are just super exciting for people. So, you know, you got to sink your teeth into them and see, and there's this evolution of stuff. But I'll give you 2 more that are cult classics. Okay?
I like it. Bring it.
Hellraiser, if you love a heavy, moody, hard rock song that's dark, you got to check out Hellraiser. I love the beginning riff is the best hook for me. It's somewhere between something maybe Motley would have done and something off of Aerosmith's 90s albums. I want to say it was like a Taste of India or something in that kind of vibe. So you got to, I'm telling you, it's a totally different thing. And then the last,
I'm glad you brought that one up, because I was going to bring it up if you didn't. Yeah.
And then the last one, no show goes by, and it's partially because it's about the theatrics and the energy that happens in the live show, But finally we said, man, we've never really done this song justice and put it out digitally for people to consume. And that's Reptile Roots. We finally put that out maybe about a year ago. And we actually cut it the way we would play it live, with this whole outro. No, the choruses are over, and it's just the guitars and the drums and just doing this huge, just crashing outro. And I love that, and the fans love it. And I think it's just because, again, this band at the end of the day is about being a live band and having that high energy rock and roll. And there's nothing that talks about high energy rock and roll better than Reptile Roots.
I'm glad you brought that one up. Those are both in my notes right here. Marty's a Hellraiser guy. I am too, but I'm the Reptile Roots guy. So yes, I'm glad you brought those. I'm born to be a Wicked fan. It was inevitable. So
welcome to
thank
the
you, Jen, and the Chipster team for bringing you onto my radar. They brought so many great bands to the show. You guys are definitely up there. I'm loving it. And folks, make sure you're checking out Wicked at wickedrockandrollofficial.com. That's for the website, but also on the socials. He said you got Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, YouTube. Be a subscriber. Know what's going on with them. Looking forward to the tour later this year. Of course, I'm saying come to Arizona now while it's cooler where you are. Come the summertime, you're going to be one of those cliche bands. It's so hot out here. Yeah, no shit. It's the summertime in Arizona. But well, I'll take you guys whenever. So, and then Jim, of course, is up in the Northwest.
Come to Seattle. Come to Seattle. It's not as hot, and we need some fun rock out here for sure.
We'll bring the fun.
Awesome.
Well, Go Rebel coming out this summer. Check out Wicked, and they're at Wicked Rock N, just the letter N, roll. Danny Martin, thank you so much for joining us here on All Over the Place. Absolute pleasure, and looking forward to rocking out with you guys live later this year.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's been a blast. See you soon.
Very cool. All right, take care. And everyone, we will be back real soon. Thank you, as always, for liking, sharing, subscribing. And we'll be back real soon on All Over the Place. Till then, take care.
Bye-bye.
All Over the Place, where the fun sanity never ends.